This is my new table saw, SawStop. I've been dreaming about this saw for a while now, and I can't believe that I have it in my shop. I've decided in order to enhance my workflow and process, I need to upgrade my tools, and what better table saw than a finger-saving table saw? Yes, it senses flesh and stops to prevent major accidents, like finger loss. Speaking of fingers, I've got a story to share. A little while back I was working late in the shop. I ended up nicking my finger on my old Skills table saw, and I was so lucky that I just turned the saw off and the damage wasn't significant. So not only do I improve my shop with the SawStop, I also add a safety feature that in my opinion is priceless. What a plug for SawStop, huh? No sponsors here, I wish. Just speaking my truth. The story of this build is how to make the SawStop work for my needs. If you own a table saw, chances are they sit between 32 to 36 inches off the ground. For someone who is 6'3", I find this a bit low for my liking. My plan is also to add an assembly table, and working at that height for too long will be tough on my back. So the idea of this build is to create a hefty mobile base for all 350 plus pounds of cast iron. The first goal is to elevate it to about 39 to 40 inches off the ground. The second goal, which was inspired mid-build, is to add storage to the mobile base. More on that a little later. So what you've been watching is the initial glue up and milling process to get the thickness required to put together what I'm calling the integrated hefty mobile base and storage. Mouthful, huh? Once all the pieces were milled to size, I began working on marking out the joinery. I have never done a joint other than a butt joint, using pocket holes, so I thought this would be a cool build to try it out. Being that the joints will bear a lot of weight, I needed it to be as strong as possible. As I mentioned, this was my first time cutting dados, and also the last time I will be using my skill saw. I've got to take a moment to tip my hat off to this contractor saw. It has served me well over the years, and I would recommend it to any beginner. Once the joints have been laid out and the proper height being set on the saw, it was time to batch out the lap joints and the dado to accept the structure that supports the extension wings. After the dados, I clamped up the portion that will accept the saw base using glue and screws to keep the build moving forward. Surprisingly, all the joints fit well. Not bad for a first timer, huh? I know I talked up dados, I still found a way to use pocket holes for joinery. It is just simple and it works well. These two ledges are used to set the saw to the appropriate height. The casters give me about 3¼ inches, so I needed to position the ledgers to add another 1¼ inch to get me to that 39 to 40 inches I desire. After assembly, I quickly sanded it and sprayed it black to try to match that glossy black on the saw. Then the casters were added, and at this stage, I can call this part of the build done. Using a ratchet clamp, I was able to roll and lift the saw onto the mobile base. If you like what you've been watching so far, please hit that subscribe button. If you have a saw that isn't as big or doesn't need support for the extension wing, you can stop here. However, if you would like to support an extension wing, let's keep on. The extension wing of the base was assembled and dry fitted to mark out where the legs would be. So, remember when I mentioned that this mobile base was going to have integrated storage? At this point, I wasn't thrilled with the stability and the aesthetics, so I decided why not replace the legs with a storage cabinet. I've seen a lot of cool builds of under-saw storage, but I haven't seen too many integrated onto a mobile base like such. So I decided to go down that path. Using 3/4 MDF, I cut down the sheets required to put the carcass cabinet together. Not only will it provide storage, it supports the extension wing perfectly. Because we've seen so many cabinet builds, I won't bore you with a step-by-step of the basics. Obviously there's a carcass, drawers, drawer slides, and a drawer front. There are many ways to put together the carcass, and the drawers were just butt joints attached with glue and brad nails. For the drawer fronts, I decided to make 3 similar sized drawers and 1 big drawer to store some of the bigger items that I'll need around the table saw. The drawer fronts received an 1/8 of an inch chamfer, which really gave it a nice look and created a nice depth of perception with the black paint. Because we're using MDF, the edges needed to be treated. After seeing a process of sealing the edges on Instagram, I decided on using joint compound. With a quick sand after everything dries, we're ready for paint. I went with 1 coat of primer, a light sanding, and then the paint. How cool is that red paint? I was inspired by the SawStop color combo and tried to replicate it to create a matching cabinet. I hope that if they ever decide to create a matching cabinet, my build will be the inspiration. As we near the finish, I created a couple of handles by cutting 1-inch strips and then cutting a random angle into the strips to create a recess to be able to grip the handle. A little finish work and chrome paint, and it was time to put everything together. Once all the components were finished, it was time to put the integrated cabinet onto the mobile base. I maneuvered the base onto the cabinet and attached it using screws across the extension wing support. The cabinet fit nicely and provided rigid support for the extension wing. All that's left to do is install the drawers and call it a day. I really hope you all enjoyed this build. I usually don't share workshop projects, but this one was too cool not to, and the fact that I hadn't seen many builds like it. If you've enjoyed this project, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to follow my journey of building and paying it forward to those who are less fortunate. Before I sign off, I want to leave you with this. If you ever find yourself in a position to do good, or something is being asked of you, please consider it. Charity builds lives.